All right. It looks like we're actually live. Justin here with 4J Real Estate. We're doing a little bit of a different format today. Rather than posting this directly to YouTube as a video, we are going to do a live video. Hopefully you're seeing this on Facebook and maybe YouTube as well. In future iterations, we'll try to do this on LinkedIn as well. But I hope this finds you well, healthy, and safe wherever you may be. I looked at data this past week. Again, as you know, I've been looking at the market data since the beginning of this pandemic, and things are really kind of volatile, and they have been for the last few weeks. But let's start with market information for DC. So in looking at DC this past week, we're seeing that contracts are down for the second week in a row, double digits actually. The number of listings are down by double digits. So what does that mean? That just means that perhaps sellers are starting to feel the pressures of what's going on with the market and a little bit more reticent to put their listings online. For example, we had 300 listings hit the market this past week in comparison to 342 the week before. The average sales price was about 100% of list price. So again, not seeing too many deals across the board, but perhaps there are some for those that have been sitting on the market a little bit longer. The maximum sales price this past week was in DC, it was 177% of the list price. So that's huge, almost 200% of the list price in DC. The average sales price itself down just about $100,000. The average list price last week was $861,000. This past week was $752,000, and that's for a 3-bedroom, 2-bath in DC. The number of units sold this past week up slightly at about 10% from where we were the week before. So there's your numbers on DC. And now we are going to be looking at PG County. I should look and see if anyone has any questions. If you have any questions, just go ahead and feel free to ask any questions you may have. PG County actually had a banner week again this week. Last week, the maximum sales price was 300% of the purchase price. This past week, it was 152%. So still seeing some great escalation clauses in PG County. The number of listings is up slightly at 3%. Number of contracts also up at 4.5%. More contracts this week than last week. So quite a bit of activity still going on in PG County. The number of units sold in PG County, so the number of homes that sold this week was 57% higher than the week before. We were down about 3% last week. This week, we're up 57%. So again, this is a great illustration of that kind of market volatility that I was kind of talking about. That's what's going on in PG County. Moving on in other parts of Maryland now to Montgomery County. Montgomery County's got some interesting things going on. Number of units sold up 76%. We were down at 27% last week, so up 76%. I'm kind of seeing this really interesting up and down fluctuation. So the week of just after the 4th of July, we were down 51%. The week after that, we were up 44%. Back down 27%, and now up again 76%. We don't typically see this type of activity in this market. It's usually a little bit either, we get like a flat surface or we actually increase. Number of units sold nearly doubled, which is crazy. We went from 258 units to over 1,400 sold units last week. The maximum sales price, 119%. The average sales price hanging strong at 99%. So again, not seeing a lot of activity under 90, 95% going on in Montgomery County. Let's look at Fairfax now, moving into Virginia. I guess that's a benefit of being licensed in 3 jurisdictions. You get to look at a broader area. So in looking at Fairfax this past week, the number of units sold is up 89%, 89% from where we were last week. So 314 units sold the week before last week, 492, so almost 500 units sold. The maximum sales price we're seeing up at about 124% of list price. So again, lots of competition there. And some nice escalations. The average sales price is exactly 100% of the sales price. So, of the 492 units sold, that means the average sales price of all those 492 units was 100% of the list price. So not a lot of, deals happening in Fairfax either. The average list price stays the same this week as it did, or last week as it did the week before, hanging strong at $652,000 for a 4-bedroom, 3-bath house. That's your market update for Fairfax. I'm going to look at Arlington now really quickly. And in Arlington, we can see that, again, we have the average list price increased by almost $100,000 this past week in Montgomery County. I'm sorry, in Arlington. I apologize for that. I'm in Arlington in Virginia. The average list price for this past week was $860,000. Last week, it was just about $768,000. And both of these are reflecting a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house. The number of units sold up about 20% from where it was last week. The number of contracts is also up. However, the number of listings is down about 3%. Some good activity still happening in Arlington County, but I'm really excited to kind of see that increase in the average list price there, going from $768,000 to $860,000. The maximum sales price was 114% of list price. And again, like some of the other areas that we have seen, of the 71 units that were sold last week, the average sales price of all of those units were 100% of the actual list price. If I started to see, average list prices at about 80% or, 85%, I would then know that people are starting to get some what we call deals, or some relief in terms of not having to pay sticker price for properties. But I think across the board, what we're seeing is that people are pricing their homes competitively in order to get competition and in order to get their units sold. Again, the number of listings are down, but for those listings that did sell, we can see that the list price is about 100%. Now, lastly, going to Alexandria. Alexandria, we didn't see prices reach as high as some of the other areas in the max sales price at 108% of list price. Again, the averages, there was about 50 units sold in Alexandria this past week, and of that, listings were about 100% of list price. What I am seeing is a bit of a decrease in the average list price in Alexandria in comparison to where we were last week. Last week, a 3-bedroom, 3-bath house, the average list price was $811,000. This past week, we're seeing it at $677,000. So that's probably the biggest takeaway in terms of Alexandria, with the exception of Alexandria across the board is down in terms of number of listings, are down about 25%, 10% down in the number of contracts, and about 5% down in the units sold. So again, seeing lots of ups and downs as it relates to the markets. But that's your market update for this week. If you haven't tuned in, we're going to try to record this, and hopefully if we do, we can post it to our social media stations or channels after that. Please be sure to give us a follow if you aren't following us on Instagram, LinkedIn, or Facebook. We are at 4JRE on Instagram, and 4J Properties LLC, or 4J Real Estate LLC, sorry, on Facebook. Hope all's well. Take care. We'll see you next week.